Wiglaf, a young kingsman and retainer of Beowulf who helps him in the fight against the dragon, while all of the other warriors run away. Wiglaf adheres the heroic code better than Beowulf's other retainers, thereby proving himself a suitable successor to Beowulf. Ecgtheow, Beowulf's father, Hygelac's brother-in-law, and Hrothgar's friend. Ecgtheow is dead by the time the story begins, but he lives on through the noble reputation that he made for himself during his life and in his dutiful son's remembrances. King Hrethel, the greatest king who took Beowulf, is as a ward after the death of Ecgtheow, Beowulf's father. Breaca, Beowulf's childhood friend, whom he defeated in a swimming match. Unferth alludes to the story of their contest, and Beowulf then relates it in detail. Sigemund, a figure from Norse mythology, famous for slaying a dragon. Sigemund's story is told in praise of Beowulf and foreshadows Beowulf's encounter with the dragon. King Heremod, an evil king of legend, the scop or bard at Heorot, discusses King Heremod as a figure who contrasts greatly with Beowulf. Queen Modthryth, a wicked queen of legend who punishes anyone who looks at her the wrong way. Modthryth's story is told in order to contrast her cruelty with Hygde's gentle and reasonable behavior. And now for the plot. Beowulf falls into two parts. It opens in Denmark, where King Hrothgar has a splendid mead hall known as Heorot, a place of celebration and much merriment. However, the joyous noise angers Grendel, an evil monster living in a nearby swamp. For 12 years, the creature terrorizes Heorot with nightly visits in which he carries off Hrothgar's warriors and devours them. After learning of the Danes' trouble, young Beowulf, a prince of the Geats, in what is now southern Sweden, arrives with a small band of retainers and offers to rid Heorot of its monster. Hrothgar is astonished at the little-known hero's daring but welcomes him. After an evening of feasting, much courtesy, and some discourtesy, at one point, one of Hrothgar's men insults Beowulf. The king retires, leaving Beowulf in charge. During the night, Grendel comes from the moors, rips open the heavy doors, and devours one of the sleeping Geats. He then grapples with Beowulf, who refuses to use a weapon. Beowulf grips one of Grendel's hands with such force that the monster finally wrenches himself free only when his arm is torn off at the shoulder. Mortally wounded, Grendel returns to his swamp and dies. Beowulf then displays the monster's arm in Heorot for all to see. The next day is one of rejoicing in Heorot, and a feast is thrown in Beowulf's honor. However, as the warriors sleep that night, Grendel's mother, another swamp monster, comes to avenge her son's death, and she kills one of Hrothgar's men. In the morning, Beowulf dives into her mirror lake to search for her. She attacks him. They struggle in the dry cave at the mere's bottom, and Beowulf finally kills her with a sword. In the cave, Beowulf discovers Grendel's corpse, whose head he cuts off and takes back to Heorot. The Danes rejoice once more. Hrothgar makes a farewell speech about the character of the true hero, and Beowulf, enriched with honors and princely gifts, returns home to King Hygelac of the Geats. The second part passes rapidly over Hygelac's subsequent death in a battle, the death of his son, and Beowulf's succession to the kingship and his peaceful rule of 50 years. However, The tranquility ends when a fire-breathing dragon becomes enraged after a man steals from its treasure-filled lair. The creature begins ravaging Gitland, and the brave but aging Beowulf decides to engage it, despite knowing that he will likely die. The fight is long and terrible, a painful contrast to the battles of his youth, painful to his desertion of all his retainers except for his young kinsman, Wiglaf, who comes to his aid. They ultimately kill the venomous dragon, but Beowulf is mortally wounded from a bite in the neck. Before he dies, he names Wiglaf his successor. Beowulf is cremated on a funeral pyre, and his remains are buried in a barrow built by the sea. As his people mourn his death, they also express the fear that without Beowulf, Shetland will be invaded by nearby tribes. And this is the analysis of the story. Beowulf belongs metrically, stylistically, and thematically to a heroic tradition grounded in Germanic religion and mythology. It's also part of the broader tradition of heroic poetry. Many incidents such as the tearing of Munster's arm and the hero's descent into the mere are familiar motifs from folklore. The ethical values are manifestly the Germanic codes of loyalty to chief and tribe and vengeance to enemies. Yet the poem is so infused with the Christian spirit that it lacks the grim fatality of many of the Eddaic lays or the sagas of Icelandic literature. Beowulf himself seems more altruistic than other Germanic heroes of the ancient Greek. Heroes of the Iliad, it is significant that his three battles are not against men, which would entail the retaliation of the blood feud, but against evil monsters, enemies of the whole community and of civilization itself. Many critics have seen the poem as a Christian allegory in Beowulf, as a Christian allegory in which Beowulf, the champion of goodness and light, fights the forces of evil and darkness. His sacrificial death is seen not as tragic, but as befitting the end of a good, some would say too good, hero's life. This is not to say that Beowulf is an optimistic poem. English writer and Old English scholar J.R.R. Tolkien suggested that its total effect is more like a long lyrical elegy than an epic. Even the earlier, happier section in the Enmark is filled with ominous references that would have been well understood by contemporary audiences. Thus, after Grendel's death, King Hrothgar speaks sanguinely of the future, which the audience would know will end with the destruction of his line and the burning of Iorot. In the second part, the movement is slow and funereal. Scenes from Beowulf's youth are replayed in a minor key as a counterpoint to his last battle, and the mood becomes increasingly somber as the word that comes to all men closes in on him. Who wrote Beowulf and when it was written? It was written in England sometime the 8th and the early 11th century. The author was an anonymous Anglo-Saxon poet, referred to by scholars as the Beowulf poet. That's all for today. I hope you've learned the plot, characters, and the analysis of the story Beowulf. Goodbye and good luck. Thank you for watching. God bless, guys.